Hello again in this video clip series. I'm calling My Journey to God in a Very Secularized World. This should be video clip number 50. Continuing again on this strategy and deception that we're living in today. I ended the last video clip talking about give us a little bit of hope of the resurrection. A few more verses on that. Matthew chapter 10, Jesus says to us, "Do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father's will. But even the hairs of your head are all numbered. Fear not, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows. So everyone who acknowledges me before men, I also acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I will deny before my Father who is in heaven." Jesus also tells us in Matthew 24, "Then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name." Because, friends, this is the period of the great tribulation. Matthew 24:21, and of the great apostasy before the manifestation of the Antichrist. 2 Thessalonians 2:3. "An hour is coming for everyone who kills you will think that he is offering service to God." John 16. Our Lady said to Gobi in June 28, 1990, she said, "The second Pentecost will come like a river of grace and of mercy, which will purify the church and make her poor and chaste, humble and strong, without spot or wrinkle, all beautiful in imitation of your heavenly mother." She also tells us in March 27, 92, "Then will the church once again be humble, holy, beautiful, poor, evangelical, without spot or wrinkle, in imitation of its heavenly mother, who is leading it each day toward its great renewal." She tells us also in April 18, 92, "Let it be the sepulchre of your slavery, where the church dies. The church which is sick and divided, pervaded with the spirit of the world, darkened in its loyalty and holiness, assailed by the loss of faith and apostasy, and where the new church is born, holy, faithful, enlightened, evangelical, poor and chaste, reflecting solely the light of its Christ upon the world. In the new sepulchre of this day, may every form of slavery of this time of yours, which holds you under the power of Satan and of his universal seduction, be laid away once and for all. And may the new times be born, the new times of your liberation, which is given to you by Jesus Christ, risen and living in your midst." I would like to begin here to talk about this deception and in this period of how, talk about a little bit this great prophecy of Daniel, that the daily sacrifice will be taken away for 1,290 days, which also Christ made reference to in Matthew 24:15. You can find some of this you can find in my index several articles about this loss of the Eucharist, because there are many indications that the Masonry is working to pull off the greatest deception since Jesus Christ came to earth. Only a few Catholics who have maintained their faith according to the authentic magisterium of the Catholic Church, and who are willing to lose all, including human respect for Jesus, will understand this great loss, the loss of the real presence of Jesus Christ in the Most Holy Eucharist. The negative eternal effects of this loss will be far greater than the nuclear Third World War. I think it goes without saying that this, the greatest deception in the history of the Catholic Church, will be done in such a manner that as few Catholics as possible will realize the greatest loss in the history of the world. As St. Paul tells us, Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. There is less prayer than ever before, more sin than ever before, and even worse, indifference as to sin, as if sin no longer exists. And so we have given very great power to the father of lies. We have given it. In particular, Satan has more power to disguise himself as an angel of light, to offer his very deadly, beautiful lies as if they were the truth, but not the truth of God that sets us free. Thus, it is very important in these times of great confusion, when even Catholic bishops are no longer in agreement about the fundamentals of our faith and morals, to not only pray much and to study the Catechism of the Catholic Church that John Paul II gave us, but to keep our eyes open so as not to fall into the beautiful lies of Satan presented as if they were the truth. I'm a Catholic. It is very important to keep in mind some very fundamental truths as a Catholic to help us not be deceived. One truth that may seem obvious, but no longer today is obvious in an atmosphere totally dominated by subjectivism and relativism, is that the truth comes from God, not from me or any other creature, and not even from the church. And thus no bishop, priest, pope can change the truth of divine revelation, which is well summarized in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. The church is the handmaid of the truth, not the author of the truth. Today, this is more and more reversed as more and more people repeat original sin. You remember in Genesis, we read in Genesis chapter 3, "But the serpent said to the woman, 'You will not die, for God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.'" That temptation is that we become God and we decide what's right or wrong. We no longer have to discover right and wrong from God or trust God. We trust only ourselves. The Holy Spirit in the last 2,000 years has guided the Catholic Church to understand more deeply the immutable truths of God, which will never change, not even, as Jesus said in Matthew 5, not even an iota or a dot of the law will change, as do so many leaders in the church today. Thus people have been led by Satan and his very numerous followers today to no longer seek the objective truth from God, but from their own opinions and from the world whose prince is Satan. On this earth, in this short life, the beautiful lies of the angel of light are always easier and offer more pleasure than the truth of God, which is also always connected with the cross of Christ, which tells us that we can only overcome our egoism by prayer and self-sacrifice. Someone once explained relativism with the example of a nurse who was to give some medicine to a patient, but there were two mismarked bottles of different medicines on the table, and she forgot which was the right one for the patient. She said to herself that I am a nice person and of good will, and so I will just pick one of these two medicines and give it to the patient. She chose the wrong one, and the patient died. This may seem terrible, but to play with the eternal truths, especially in regard to the doctrines of the Church, or about the essential elements required for a valid Mass, end up depriving us of the necessary guidance and spiritual help and medicine to save our immortal souls, which is far more valuable, infinitely, than our physical bodies. In our current atmosphere of relativism, very few Catholics today have any idea of the difference between a valid Mass and an invalid Mass, between having the infinite God present in the Eucharist and having only bread on the altar during and after the Mass. When I told a person I know that an invalid Mass would be promulgated with the motive of celebrating a liturgy with Catholics and Protestants and everyone else all together, she replied, that would be nice. People don't even care. But she had no concern if the 4 basic requirements of a valid Mass are present, so as to have the infinite God in the Eucharist. This will be the reaction of the vast majority of Catholics led into subjectivism and relativism in the last 50 years or more, who no longer even know how to make distinctions in a logical manner. In most seminaries today, there is no longer taught logic or metaphysics or cosmology. And more recently, many seminaries have taken out the writings of St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine. St. Thomas Aquinas wrote, rarely affirm, seldom deny, always distinguish. We have been led to the worship of man, and we have lost the worship of God. Bishop Athanasius Schneider reminds us that the first commandment which Christ gave us was to adore God alone. Liturgy is not a meeting of friends. It is our first task to adore and glorify God in the liturgy, and also in our manner of life. From a true adoration and love of God grows love for the poor and our neighbor. It is a consequence. I will end this video clip here. May God bless you and Mary guide you.